Chapter 27 Face the Facts. 2 hours earlier, Griffin had woken up with one heck of a headache. The alarm was buzzing, and he had a blurry feeling that it had been going off for a while. Before he had lain down beside Cheyenne, he had set the alarm for 2:30. He was sure it wouldn't be necessary, that he would be too keyed up to sleep. That was his last waking thought. Now the clock said it was 3:12 a.m. He sat up. A wave of dizziness crashed over him. His head ached something fierce. When he put his hand to the top of his head, it came away wet and sticky. At the sight of the red on his fingers, he felt a muzzy sort of shock. He explored the wound more gingerly. 2 welts, one an inch longer, right next to each other. The skin around them was swollen tight, but no broken bits of bone when he probed, grinding his teeth together against the pain. Pushing himself into a sitting position, Griffin tried to figure out what had happened. He was on the bed in his sleeping bag. He looked to his left. The nylon cord was still tied to the empty bed, but there was no Cheyenne on the end of it, and on the floor was a big silver wrench, one end clotted with something. He felt a little sick when he looked at the reddish-brown clump matted with hair. That was blood. His blood. Griffin got up. For a second, he had to steady himself on the bedpost. He wasn't going to make the same mistake he had the last time. He wasn't going to go rushing outside only to leave Cheyenne in the house. He quickly went from room to room, opening all the closets and looking underneath the furniture. The fire in the wood stove had gone out, and the house was quiet and cold. No Cheyenne. This time she really had to be in the woods. He yanked on a coat, hat, and gloves, and then grabbed the flashlight and went looking for her. And then he discovered Duke was gone too. To follow their trail, he had been forced to move slowly, scanning back and forth with his flashlight, looking for a footprint in the dusting of snow or freshly broken branches. Once it got light, Griffin knew it would be easier for everyone. He had been determined to find her before the others did. Now he walked beside Cheyenne through the forest. Even though it was daylight, it was the time of year when even at noon, the light was gray and uncertain. Scarves of mist clung to the trees. Sounds carried oddly here, floating through the cold, crisp air, making it hard to pinpoint where they came from. Even though he was hurrying as fast as he could, it was still slow going as they skirted mud holes and underbrush. At least the snow was lighter here, just a spotty dusting, so they didn't have to worry about leaving tracks. There wasn't enough clear space for them to easily walk side by side, so while Griffin carefully steered Cheyenne across relatively unlittered ground, his own feet scuffed through the ferns or got sucked in by half-frozen mud. When his foot was wrenched from under him, Griffin screamed. He couldn't help it. He fell to the ground. "What is it?" Cheyenne yelled. Her hands swam through the air looking for him. "Griffin, what's wrong?" The pain was so great that he couldn't speak. Hot tears ran down his cheeks. He pushed himself up on the elbows. His left foot was still half in the hole he had stepped in, some animal's small burrow, but his leg was now facing a completely different direction. "Griffin!" Cheyenne's voice broke. Her unseeing eyes were wide as she turned her head from side to side. "It's my ankle," he managed to grunt. "I stepped in a hole and I think I broke it." Invisible knives were slicing his tendons and nerves. Griffin didn't mean to, but when he pulled his foot free out of the hole, he let out another scream. It dangled at the end of his leg like a shoe he had half kicked off. But this was his foot. Panting, Griffin pulled up his pants leg, ignoring the fresh waves of agony, even though part of him didn't want to know how damaged it was. Cheyenne found his shoulder and crouched beside him. "How bad is it?" "Bad. My foot's pointing the wrong way." "Is it bleeding?" "No, but I think at least one of the bones in my ankle is broken." "What are we going to do?" Cheyenne's face was creased with concern. It was hard to think. Griffin realized he was moaning faintly at the end of every breath. "Here, help me get up. If I can lean on you, maybe I can hop on my good leg. I'm going to have to be your eyes, and you're going to have to help be my leg. Cheyenne leaned down. Putting her hands around his wrist, she began to pull while Griffin tried to stand on just his right leg. She was overbalanced, in danger of toppling onto him. He got nearly all the way up and then lurched forward. His left foot touched the ground. A bolt of electricity jolted its way up his leg, burning every nerve. With a cry, he fell back on the ground, pulling Cheyenne over on top of him. He let out another scream when some part of her pressed against his ankle. He was in too much pain to be ashamed. She rolled off of him so they were lying next to each other on the icy ground. For a second, there was just the sound of their breathing. He made himself face the facts. I can't do it, Cheyenne. You'll have to go on your own. She propped herself on one elbow. I'm not leaving you here. You could freeze to death. I can already hear your teeth chattering. It's nothing. Just from the shock, that's all. He was vaguely aware of the cold and wet seeping through his pants. Look, we're only about a mile or two from the main road. I can point you in the right direction. Just keep walking in a straight line, and you should get there in less than an hour. That's not enough time for anything bad to happen to me. Face it, there's no way I can put any weight on my leg. Even if I manage to get to my feet, I can't hop for 2 miles. You go out to the road and flag somebody down. Then you can come back for me. She trailed her fingers up his chest until she found his face, then cupped his cheek. But if they find you, they might kill you for helping me. But they won't know that I was helping you. He had to speak through gritted teeth as the pain seared up his leg and into his brain. I'll just tell them I was looking for you, and then I'll say I saw tracks going in the completely opposite direction. No, she shook her head, her upper lip curled. No way. She grabbed one of his hands and half stood. I can't leave you here. You have to come with me. Come on. Just try getting up again. You have to get up soon. You gave up too soon. Her face was so white, a blue vein fluttered in her temple. Cheyenne, he hardened his voice. I can't. If either one of us is going to survive, you have to get to that road as soon as possible.